Hi folks, I'm Ashley Warren and I'm the director of the Storytelling Collective. And as part of our world building challenge, I wanted to read you an essay I wrote for the Kobold Guide to Worldbuilding Volume 2. As evident by the title, this is a collection of essays by authors and tabletop creators all about world building. Each one offers an actionable tip and trick for your own world building process. And the essay that I'm going to read to you today is about creating your own marketplace and why having a very specific honed in part of your setting can actually help convey a lot about your greater world. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll put the link down below to where you can pick up a copy of this book. Okay, let's get started. The Marketplace Microcosm. The scent of baked goods and sizzling meats wafts through the vendor stalls. Smoke from the many aromatic votives and lanterns rises into the cold air and dissipates, leaving behind a perfumed mist. The din of the crowd ebbs as a heated haggle escalates between old Martha, the milliner, and Mr. Opal, the luthier. But the tension is broken as two children dash into the fray, one dodging under old Martha's skirts. Mr. Opal relents with a smile and hands over the satchel of silver coins that clink in the bag. Nearby, the sound of a hammer meeting metal on an anvil echoes through the narrow cobblestone alleys. Where is this marketplace scene occurring? It could be almost anywhere, and it almost doesn't matter. But from a handful of details, we can glean a lot about this fictional locale. It's cold, and people take steps to mitigate that through warm and comforting foods. It's busy and populated, given the noise and the chaos. Its economy includes artisanry, the milliner, the luthier, and a nearby blacksmith, and coin currency as a means of exchange. A marketplace scenario like this manages to convey a lot of world building in a relatively small number of words. We call this the Marketplace Microcosm because a marketplace essentially acts as a zoomed-in view of a fictional place. It can do the heavy lifting of conveying the culture, the history, the traditions, the economy, the residents, and so much more by placing readers in an organic and familiar starting point. Let's break this concept down into parts and dissect why establishing a marketplace can fast-track meaningful world building without having to overload a reader with lore or exposition, something we're always trying to avoid in our storytelling, right? The economy. Almost every fictional setting has some sort of economy at play. On the other hand, the lack of an established economy can be just as compelling for storytelling. An economy does not necessarily have to include currency, although the form and purpose of currency also tells us much about a place. Ultimately, a fictional economy comes down to the presence or lack of goods and services and a system for exchanging those. Trade, barter, sharing, and currency are all tried and true options for a reason, but you can develop a more abstract system, such as the use of personal favors, prayer, memories, or a sense of duty. Whatever system your fictional society uses must have a purpose. So what is it, and how does that tie into the larger narrative you're trying to establish? That question alone is fodder for a unique story. If you don't want the economy of your world to be too much of a focal point, you can still put a creative spin on currency to say something about your setting. Often forms of currency are determined by genre. In the Fallout video game's post-apocalyptic setting, bottle caps are used as currency because they are an already manufactured item that were once in abundance, but are now much scarcer. Like real-world currency and economy, yours will likely have its own set of rules. Using this thought process, how is currency produced in your world? And what does that process suggest about your world's resources and values? Who determines how the economy functions? Is there a bank or arbiter of the economy and currency? Is the whole system rigged, or does it operate fairly? Once you have some of these bigger questions answered, you can drill down from there to share this information through a meaningful scene that takes place in your market. For example, does the lack of coinage but abundance of goods lead to thievery? Thievery in a market is a classic trope that presents an opportunity for readers and players to think about moral choices. Think of the Disney movie Aladdin and what its bread-stealing market chase sequence conveys in the context of the story. We learn that Aladdin has few material resources, but he himself is resourceful. He charms some and angers others through his escape, which gives us a chance to witness other aspects of the society in which he lives. He stops to feed hungry children, which also implies that there is a class system in Agrabah. The vendors are packed closely together, and there is a bustling crowd visible throughout, implying that this is a busy hub of culture and commerce. All of this world building is communicated in media res, using a market as its foundation. Imagine instead if Aladdin had simply sat in one place and explained all of that information to Abu without the viewer learning it in brief vignettes. Which would you rather experience? What defines a market is its wares. And this is where world builders can get really creative and convey a lot with relatively few details. What is on display in your fictional market? What is available for trade or purchase? Are their offerings strange or unique? Do the wares come locally to the market, or are they imported from far away? When it comes to wares and goods, there's almost no limit to what you can create. If it feels daunting to come up with this fictional inventory from scratch, start by answering some simple questions. What 5 wares does your market have? How much do they cost, whether via currency or trade, depending on your economy? Where do the goods come from? Who or what makes them? What are they made out of? For example, if your market offers mostly foodstuffs, the presence of unique and unconventional meat from rare or alien creatures is automatically an enticing hook for readers and players. A market with memorable wares is the Troll Market from Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. Only certain people can access the Troll Market, and what they find there is a treasure trove of fantastical and supernatural offerings from around the world. The variety of creatures who patronize the market is equally as interesting, as they are as fantastical as the goods on display. We'd be remiss if we did not also mention one of fiction's most famous markets, Diagon Alley from the Harry Potter books and movies. This introduction for both the reader and Harry is our first real glimpse of the wizarding world. The shops and types of items offered immediately teach us so much about the values of this world, such as the importance of pet ownership, school supplies, and what people do for pastimes. The vendors. A market's offerings are rarely provided without the presence of vendors. These characters are some of the most fun to develop, as you can give them personality and characteristics that align with, or are at odds with, their wares. A proud old artisan sharing their beautiful, painstakingly crafted embroidered garments may have a completely different personality than someone who hawks cheap or even stolen items for a steep profit. Your vendors suggest features about your setting. Are artisans and makers prized or derided? Is being a vendor or merchant something to be proud of? Ashamed? How do the vendors treat their customers? Those who spend much of their lives in a market are also excellent sources of lore and information. The way a vendor acts also suggests the value of their wares, which ties back into the greater economic system of your original world. In the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, the rifted marketplace in the center of the city is small, but the vendors there each have distinct and comical personalities. Grumpy Grelka reluctantly sells weapons and armor while insulting every customer who looks her way, and the lack of pride in her offerings makes the player assume she provides low-quality supplies. Her stall is beside the smooth-tongued reptilian Medici, who makes and sells his own jewelry, and we associate that with a higher value. The differences in their attitudes speak to both their individual backgrounds. Grelka is a Nord from Skyrim, whereas Medici comes from the faraway Black Marsh, but also how Riften functions, which suggests a combination of danger and humor that the players can expect to find there. The location. Now comes another fun aspect of creating a marketplace, determining how it looks and functions. Typically, most markets mirror whatever locale they are a part of, so you can leverage that to establish consistency in your setting. Perhaps the market stalls are onion-domed like the nearby looming castle. You can likewise leverage it to do the reverse. Perhaps ratty scraps of fabric barely shield vendors from snow, a stark contrast from the surrounding glossy corporate buildings. You can also break out of traditional market tropes entirely. One of the most memorable scenes in the film Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets is the Big Market, which can only be experienced through virtual reality with special gear. Without the gear, the market is simply an empty desert, but the VR set brings to life a massive mall with hundreds and thousands of shops. It's a unique take on an old trope, and gives us a glimpse at the technology possible in the film's fantastical sci-fi setting, as well as who is able to access such remarkable technology. The architecture, layout, and location of your market can also tie into the vendors and wares. If your market is a traveling caravan, the vendors may be accustomed to living as wanderers without a home base. The wares available may change depending on where the caravan travels. There are essentially no limits to what the location of your market can communicate about your larger world. The atmosphere. This part's my favorite. Because it's self-contained, a market is an excellent way to establish atmosphere. Pull in the 5 senses to bring your market, and subsequently your original setting, to life. What are the textures people can feel or interact with? Are the scents pleasant, foul, a mix of both? Is there something to taste through food or drink? Or is that sense explored via weather, like a cold chill in the air that leaves a metallic taste on the tongue? Is the market loud and bustling? Or ghostly quiet with a few hearty customers that blow in from the desert? Hone in on those details to provide a rich, immersive experience. Ultimately, a market is a sumptuous storytelling device. Because it's small in the context of a bigger world, it serves as a good starting point for your world building. Sometimes when writers give ourselves some limits and parameters, we can unlock greater creativity. You may find that the narratives you want to explore transcend far beyond market stalls and grumpy vendors, but you'll still have a solid foundation for developing the many nuances and unique elements of the places born from your imagination. I hope you enjoyed that essay. Again, I'll put the link to it down below. And I pulled out a few little tidbits to put actually in the course itself. So if you want a guide to making your own market, there's some guidance there for you. So again, you can pick up a copy of this at Drive-Thru Fiction or through the Kobold Press website, and I'll put links to that down below. And thanks again for participating in this challenge. Hope you enjoy the rest of the month.